Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We cannot allow our democracy to be bought and paid for by the wealthy and the powerful. Yet, Mr. Speaker, Bills 26 and 27 reflect policies that would allow hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to be raised and spent by special interests and big corporations to influence public opinion with almost no oversight. The Premier writes the questions, decides who votes, where they vote, when they vote, and how they vote. Why is the Premier clearing the way for his big money donors to flood the airwaves, influence public opinion, and purchase democracy?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, here we have the new Democratic Party arguing that the greatest exercise of democracy, a referendum, is undemocratic. The only thing that's undemocratic here is the NDP, because they oppose the right of citizens to pass judgment by the millions on matters of public importance. But this government, this Conservative government, believes that the people know best on big issues about our future, and that's why we're bringing forward the power to let the people decide through referendum votes.
The Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, if this was about the people, the Premier would ban corporations from running these referendums. But he didn't brief the media, he didn't brief the opposition, he didn't let his minister answer questions because he knows that's not what he did and it's wrong. His bill will allow limitless groups to spend as much as $350,000 without an audit, Mr. Speaker. That's how you hide money. This is cynical opportunism at its worst. Why is the Premier writing legislation that prevents Albertans from knowing who gets paid when they run their big donor campaigns?
The Honourable the Premier.
So they're doubling down, Mr. Speaker, in their opposition to the purest form of democracy. The very first democracy in history, the Athenian democracy, had referendums thousands of years ago. Our neighbouring provinces in BC and Saskatchewan permit referendums brought forward by the government. Alberta used to do that, Mr. Speaker, and here's the good news. We are going to keep our platform commitment to Albertans to let them do so again through this bill that will give the people the final say on important public matters. What a shame that the new Democratic Party has become the old autocratic party.
The Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, anyone who reads the legislation knows this isn't about strengthening democracy. This is about the Premier giving himself the power to create a big money machine. He wants full control over which issues will be put to Albertans, and he wants to allow his rich friends and donors to write checks from the shadows. This is not a civilian-driven process. This is a Premier-driven power trip. Why is he using this legislature to give himself more power to hide the money being spent by his rich corporate friends and insiders on our democracy?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, the government giving away the power to make final decisions on big issues to the people. Only a bunch of socialists could consider that undemocratic. When it comes to money, Mr. Speaker, it's true that the NDP affiliate called the Alberta Federation of Labour, which is a part of the NDP legally, spent $1.8 million in third-party campaigns. But here's the good news. We're going to get that big money out of Alberta politics. We're going to close the loophole that allows that NDP affiliate to operate as a third-party expenditure, and we're going to limit contributions to third parties to $30,000.
The Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition for a second set of questions.
Mr. Speaker, the legislation allows the Premier to write a referendum question straight out of his next election platform, knowing he has big donors and special interests waiting in the wings, each of whom can spend $349,000 with no audit. There is nothing more than a way to bring big corporate dark money back in to buy him votes. If it's really about Albertans participating in democratic referendums, why won't the Premier ban unions and corporations from influencing this democratic process? Why not?
The Honourable the Premier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are going to ban political parties like the NDP from manipulating the laws. Here's what happens. The Alberta Federation of Labour is a legal constitutional wing of the NDP. They sit on the NDP board, and yet they spent nearly $2 million. That's basically partisan money laundering, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to stop it. We're going to keep our word to get big money out of Alberta politics, and we're going to limit contributions to third-party expenditures to $30,000 to stop the NDP's big money from infecting our politics.
Leader of the Opposition.
from participating and opened the door to corporations to spend more. You know, this premier's record on democracy is questionable at best. In his first leadership race, he upended tradition and broke his promise when he refused to release his donors list. In his second leadership race, he sparked an RCMP investigation and multiple probes by the Elections Alberta. Most recently, he broke every convention in the Commonwealth by abusing his power to fire an independent officer of the legislature. Albertans cannot trust this premier to run the democracy. Withdraw the bill.
The Honourable the Premier.
Albertans can't trust a government that's empowering Albertans with referendum votes. In the name of democracy, they want us to pull the biggest democratic reform in decades introduced in this province. No, Mr. Speaker, we believe in the common sense of the common people. We believe that Albertans should have the final say on important matters about our future. We believe that we should get big money out of politics, like the millions spent by NDP union bosses. And Mr. Speaker, we're going to keep our word.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the biggest democratic reform in the history of this province was when our government banned corporate and union donations from elections. And this government is bringing them back in so they can play politics on referendums that this premier is writing, not the people of Alberta. It is a travesty. Why won't he withdraw this legislation?
The Honourable the Premier.
I'm starting to wonder, why is Team Angry so angry about democracy? And there's only one answer: because they don't trust the people of Alberta, Mr. Speaker. That's why they fib to Albertans about their intention to bring in the carbon tax. But I'll tell you this, Mr. Speaker, you got the ATA, they put in $275,000 in advertising before the last election, as a $200,000 from the United Steelworkers, $2.2 million from the Health Sciences Association. Mr. Speaker, we're going to get that big money out of Alberta politics with a $30,000 cap on those contributions.
The Honourable the Leader of the Opposition for the third set of questions.
Well, we could talk a lot about the Used Car Dealers Association and the promises this premier made to them to get money from them. Let me tell you, corporate money has far outweighed union money, but the point is you take it out and it's not a problem. These guys are putting it back in, and they're doing it by pretending to Albertans that referendums are somehow going to be democratic when it's about buying votes, not respecting votes. Ban union and corporate money in referendums, and we'll support your bill.
The Honourable the Premier.
No, Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry, but I stand here on behalf of 4.4 million Albertans saying that we have confidence in their judgment to render a decision through democratic referenda, the purest form of democracy possible on critical issues. And today we see the NDP revealed for what it really is, a party, an ideological party with a narrow left-wing base that is angry with the decision that Albertans made in the last election and is unwilling to entrust Albertans with the governance of their own future. We disagree. We will proceed with this important democratic reform.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, our party believes that democracy is about votes. Our party believes democracy is not about how big a check your corporate donors write to you. That is why we took big money out of politics. This premier is putting it back in. He's got a simple answer, yes or no. Ban corporate and union donations from referendum campaigns, yes or no. And if not, why doesn't he trust Albertans to just vote? Yes or no?
The Honourable the Premier.
Speaker, I've got a list here of NDP supporting unions that contributed $4.8 million. $4.8 million to support the NDP over the past couple of years. Our platform says that we will remove big money from Alberta politics by imposing a $30,000 limit on donor contributions to political action committees and by closing the AFL loophole. I think that's the real reason they're running scared. They don't want Albertans to be able to decide on big issues, and they want to keep getting millions through the back door from unions.
I can only imagine the Premier will be tabling that document, otherwise it looks a lot like a prop. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Speaker, I'm talking about a piece of legislation that was introduced yesterday that includes references to policies that have nothing to do with what the Premier is talking about right now. What they have to do with is bringing corporate money back into provincial election campaigns after the members opposite told Albertans they agreed it should stay out. They were dishonest. Their party was dishonest with Albertans when they said they would keep corporate dollars out of provincial election campaigns. Why did the UCP lie to Albertans about that?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, under the legislation the NDP brought in, unions and corporations can contribute unlimited amounts of money to third-party advertising campaigns, including those that perhaps would be on referendums. We fundamentally and you know why they did that? So they could get $5 million of union support. We're going to shut the door on the NDP big money election scam, and moreover, we're going to give Albertans the final say on big issues through referendums, because unlike the NDP, we believe in direct democracy and the judgment of common people in this province.